Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we'll be taking a look at this monster. This is the Thermaltake CTE C700 Air. It's a big EATX case with an absolute ton of flexibility and some technology which will turn you on your head. Possibly quite literally. So in today's video we're going to go through, do a teardown of this case, see what it's all about, go through the specs, dimensions, etc. and what you can actually do with this case, and take a look at things like filtration, of which there's an absolute ton. This thing is filtered to the hilt, it really is. And also there's tons of room for things like fans and radiators. It also comes included with 3 of Thermaltake's CT140 fans, the non-RGB ones, so for the purists out there, if you just want some serious cooling straight out of the gate, then this is ready for you. They are actually separated. There's one in the front, one in the top, one in the rear, hence the CTE technology, which stands for Centralised Thermal Efficiency, which blows air in all directions. So you're looking at air going in the front, in the back, out through the top, and potentially if you want to, you can even add another dimension, take yourself into the 4th dimension and have some intake or exhaust on the bottom as well. There's a ton of options here. So we're going to go through, like I said, take this thing apart, see what it's all about. After I've done all that, I'm going to be transferring the PC behind me, which you can see is currently off. I haven't got my screens on or anything, so this is actually ready and waiting. We're going to transfer all of my kit into this and do a build in one of these cases finally. Not actually done a build in a CTE case yet, so I'm kind of interested to see how it all goes, what you can do with the cable management, because obviously with the CTE technology and the fact that the motherboard is rotated 90 degrees, now, rather than having your I/O on the back of the PC, where it is traditionally, now it's going to be coming out of the top, although they've got some really clever and intelligent cable management situations going on up there, so it does look actually good and you've still got access to your ports, etc. So, with all that said, let's get on with it. And actually, before we do get on with it, there's something which we should discuss, and that is the price. Now, at the moment, this version, which is the snow version in white, there's also a black version as well, retail price for this is £129.99, which I feel, as per usual with Thermaltake cases at the moment, is absolutely great value for money. If you take into consideration the fans on their own worth somewhere between £10 to £15, so you've got somewhere in the region of about £30 to £45 worth of fans included straight out the gate. So the case is kind of somewhere in the sort of £70 to £80 region, which for something with this amount of cooling, this amount of filtration and this amount of flexibility is something we rarely see for that sort of price point. Anyway, that's enough waffling, let's get on with this. So I'm going to be standing up for this because, again, this is a relatively big case and there's not a great deal of room to work here at the MUB HQ. So let's start off with the front panel. So the front panel, as you can see, we've got this really nice mesh section with the elongated ovals there, which I think look really, really nice. This section, all metal and very easy to remove, so no tools required. There's somewhat of a grab handle on the side here, and all you do is just pull this off. So grab that, the 2 top ones come out and do the same at the bottom. And you can hear that is metal. So we've got this really nice mesh there. Really easy to clean, really easy to remove when you need to gain access, which then leaves us with this rather large opening here. So this section here, you can fit, in terms of AIOs, anything up to 420 millimeters. If you're looking at custom radiators, up to 360. Fan-wise, 3 120s or 3 140s, or potentially if you wanted to, you can actually install 2 200mm fans here. So it'd be interesting to see if Thermaltake ever release a 200mm SWA fan. If they do, I would love to try it in this case. So we're going to turn the angle around a little bit now so you can see what's going on here. So you can see we've got this mounting tray actually behind this filter mesh. So in order to take the mesh out or to do any maintenance or cleaning, very easy to do. Just pop it out here. It's all held in nicely and no additional plastics on there to ruin the look of your lighting should you opt for some form of RGB there. With that out of the way, we can now see the CT140 fan, which is included. Rev range on this between 500 and 1500 RPM. So nice fans there. You've got this mounting bracket which comes out, so 4 screws, one there, one there, one there, one there. Possibly you're seeing this from some B-roll. I have torn this down already, so we're just kind of going through it. This section comes out, so if you want to mount your radiators or your fans, put it on first outside of the case and then put it all back in. You can do, very easy to do. And you've got tons of cable management options down the side there with those rubber grommets, so you can pass your cables through round the back to do your wiring or take them directly to your motherboard should you wish to. So lots of flexibility there. This whole front section can be removed if you want to. isn't really one of those things which is modular and designed to come off at the slightest pull. There's 3 screws at the top here, a couple of screws in the bottom, but this section can be removed for painting should you wish to. Okay, so next up we'll take a look at the main center section here. So this is the viewing side. Got 4mm tempered glass, nice white surround around the outside of the glass as well. Again, part of the toolless design, so there is a little tab on this back section, which I may obscure now as I'm taking this out, but just pull that tab and that unclips, as do the rest of the panels. It does actually rest in a channel at the bottom, so if you do accidentally tab it and leave it open, it doesn't want to fall out or anything, so don't be too concerned with that. And just lift it up off the ledge and you can remove it in its entirety. This glass doesn't have any tint to it whatsoever, and hopefully at the bottom there you can just now see there is that ledge which goes all the way across, which rests into this channel here. So now with that out of the way, we can see inside a little bit better. So included straight away as part of the equipment is a radiator pump mount. So if you've got some form of custom cooling, you've got a dedicated mounting section there, so you can put that on. That is attached with 2 thumb screws, so if you want to, you can remove that should you not require it or you not want to use it. Or of course you can use it to stand things like your favourite action figure. The choice is yours. So now with that out of the way, we can see at the bottom, so we've got another mounting section here. So if you do want to put a radiator or fans in the bottom, you certainly can do. In terms of fans, you're looking at 2 120s or 2 140s, 2 40mm radiators, etc, etc. This section, pretty much like everything else in here, a couple of screws and you can remove it in its entirety. This section just lifts up from the front and pulls out. You see there's a couple of tabs at the bottom there which hold it in place at the back there. So then you can take this section out and mount your radiators or your fans into it without having to kind of squeeze or cram in the case, although squeezing and cramming is probably not something you'll do in the C700 Air. So other things of interest, obviously we've got the rotated motherboard sections. So if you imagine your CPU is going to be here, graphics card hang in from here, literally, so no GPU sag to speak of. You can, if you want to as well, there is an additional section here for mounting other PCI Express cards as you would normally, and also there is a vertical mount GPU adapter included as part of the kit, which we'll show you a little bit later on in the accessories box. Some other cool features, obviously you've got rubber grommets for pass-throughs for your cabling, again because this is a rotated design, so you can have your motherboard here and your power is going to be somewhere along here. You've got option for ATX or extended ATX in this particular case, or you can go smaller if you want to, but realistically you probably don't want to go to micro ATX or ITX. It would look a little bit crazy in there, but obviously your case, your way, do it however you want. So yeah, that is pretty much it for there. If we tilt it back a little bit, you'll probably see for some B-roll, there is the other CT140 fan, which is included there at the top, pre-installed. So you've got one in the front pre-installed, one in the top pre-installed, and you've got one in the back section, of which we'll take a little closer look at that now. So this is the back of the case. Now obviously for a lot of people you're probably going to be a little bit disorientated by this because you're used to seeing your IO shield or other things here, PCI Express plates. That is actually on the top, so we'll look at that in a minute. This is the rear. So this rear now can be used either as an exhaust or an intake. The choice is yours. You do have a filter here which can be removed should you want to for quicker exhaust, because obviously you don't want to filter air coming out. And also you've got this other rubber grommet here. So this is your pass-through for your cables. So for your monitor, your keyboard, your mouse, Ethernet, all those kinds of things. Those go in here, up through this empty channel, and then into the top into your IO, which is now reorientated to the top. Power supply section here. So this is one of the key differences between the C series and the T series. So if you look at the CTE T series, power supply in the bottom, a little bit narrower. If you want to have this dual chamber design, then the C series is the way to go. Removing this section, pretty much exactly the same as everything else on here, completely toolless design. There's a little bit of a cutout here, so just grab your fingers in there and pop this panel out. And as with everything else that we've seen on this case, filtered very well. So pull the tab there and then you can slide the filter out of the housing. Again, same design as the front, keep it all looking the same. That just pops in, again, magnetic mounts, nice and easy to clean, pretty decent job there. So now we've got basically another reflection of what is at the front. So you've got the same kind of design here, removable tray or section, so 4 screws. Again, you've probably seen this for some B-roll. You've got the pre-installed CT140 fan Again, somewhere between 500 and 1500 RPM on that one. Fluid dynamic bearings, etc, etc. So this section can all come out if you want to. I won't bother doing it for this particular demonstration because we've seen it before, but if you want to, you can of course take that out in its entirety. So now we can take a look at the rear section. So this is the back of the PC. Again, as per usual with Thermaltake cases, more filtration here and here. So this section here is to allow some exhaust air from the back of your processor if you want to try and give your VRMs a little bit of extra help with the cooling, the back of the motherboard, which is often neglected. And this section here is so your power supply can draw in fresh air cleanly directly from the outside without taking any of the warm air which may be inside the case. Same deal with this to remove the side section. So we've got this little tab on the top like we did on the other side. Just push that out, pop these out of place, and you can remove the back panel in its entirety along with the filters. So the filters, these are pretty ingenious actually, I like these a lot. So a little tab on the top, so pull that away and lift up, and there's two little tags on there which slot in to these sections here. So you just push it on top, push it down, and magnets hold it in place. Same for that one and the bottom one for your PSU, so nice and easy to gain access and also to clean them should you need to. So now we can take a look inside the cavernous rear section. So let's break this down a little bit more simpler. So at the top you've obviously got pass-throughs for passing through cables. If you're putting your I/O at the top, obviously you need some way of getting some of the cables out, so you can run those through here, and then those will channel down through the back here and out through this section. So this is the outside board, so cables will go in through there, up around and into the back of your motherboard, which is going to be at the top, which is slightly weird, I know. It takes me a little while to get used to it, but it's a pretty decent idea, and it's probably the best implementation I've seen so far. When it comes to drive storage, up to 7 3.5-inch drives in here. When it comes to 2.5-inch drives, there's dedicated caddies for 4, so 2 in each one of these. Both of the caddies behind there, the larger ones, will take 3.5-inch drives, and also you can mount a couple of 3.5-inch drives on this section. Although if you want to, you can also mount a fan. So again, this section is recessed slightly from the motherboard. You can remove it in its entirety if it gets on your nerves or you don't want it there for whatever reason, then you can take that out or put some fans in there. The choice is yours. When it comes to grommets, again, we can see these from the other side now, so nice and easy to pass things through. A really nice section they've got for the power supply down here. So power supply is going to be in here, fan facing outward. We'll see probably most of this a little bit later. This little section here is for isolating the power supply from the case. So there's some little pads on there, and they've actually marked up on this bottom section. So this is adjustable, undo the thumb screw, and you can slide this forward and back depending on the length of your power supply. When it comes to power supply, I think the maximum rated is about 220 mil. Of course, you have got a lot of room there. You can have longer, but you may start encroaching onto the grommet section there. So this at the moment is set for a 160, I believe it is, or is it, sorry, 140, which is marked there. So power supply is going to be kind of there, so you've still got access to the majority of that section. Tons and tons of room in there for cable management, and you've got punch outs and tie downs pretty much everywhere. They do include a whole bunch of zip ties and also some Velcro ties. So if you want to run some Velcro through any of these sections to hold things in place, you certainly can do. Let's take a look at the front panel I/O. So front panel I/O, pretty straightforward. So you've got USB Type-C, as you'd expect for a modern PC chassis. You've also got 2 USB 3.0s. You've got your standard front panel connections all blacked out. And unfortunately, there's a little bit of ketchup and mustard for the front panel HD audio section. But yeah, it's nice and long as well. So depending how you're planning on wiring things, the flexibility is there, and certainly it has the length. So next we're going to take a look at the bottom section. So the bottom section, as you'd expect, so you've got rubberized feet, etc. As I referred to a little bit earlier, if you do want to remove these plastics from the front or from the back, then a couple of screws, one there, one there, one there, and a couple in the top as well. And then you can remove that front panel plastics in its entirety. If you wish to paint this, if you want to use some kind of acrylic based paints or whatever to make a slightly more interesting color scheme, you certainly can do. On the bottom there you can see that is the adjustable section for the power supply, so you can see where that all clamps into. The filter on the side is excellent. So this has just a little handle on the top here, and literally just pull it out and slide it out. Again, fine mesh, really good for trapping dust but not producing airflow too much. And they've done the same thing, so they use the plastics actually as a channel so you don't have to have any additional metal or plastic, and they use that as a channel for it to run down to, and it clips into place really nicely, which is absolutely excellent. So now we can take a look at the top section. So this is the bit that blows a lot of people's minds, mine included, to be completely honest with you. So we'll look at the easy part first of all, so the front panel I/O. So you've got a nice big clicky power button, which also illuminates. You've got a hard drive LED there as well. Then you've got a pair of USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, Type A, and then you've got USB 3.2 × 2 for USB Type C. Then you've got a separate headset and microphone jacks there. And at the very back there, you've got a tiny little reset button, so it's not going to accidentally get pressed. It's actually quite a difficult one to press, so no accidental resets when your cat jumps on your PC. Although when your cat jumps on the PC, it may get a little bit of a surprise, because this is your I/O section. So let's remove this top section. Again, as with everything else, completely toolless. As you notice, I've not had my screwdriver out for any of this other than removing the pump bracket. So front section, same as the rest, keeping the design together, works in the same way. So a little tab on there to grab onto, slots into the side, so they've rolled the metal on the edges, which strengthens the panel, but also gives the filter somewhere to rest as well. So that's a great idea. Magnetic sections in there as well, so it's going to hold it in place. So that is then going to reveal the rest of your, what would normally be your rear I/O, which is now your top I/O. So there's our pre-installed CTE 140 fan. That's in there ready to go. So that is set up as an exhaust. So this will be pulling the hot air out the top of the case, which is obviously beneficial because heat generally rises. And also you can see at the front there, there's those 3 thumb screws to remove this plastic front section. So again, if you want to paint this and change colors, you can do. Access to the screws is relatively straightforward, as you can see. So loads of ventilation up here as well, which is always a good idea. You've also got this extra fan bracket here. So your graphics card and PCI Express cards are going to be kind of behind here, hanging downward. So if you want to, you can actually add an additional fan. Sorry, thumb screws are hard. And you can actually mount another fan on this bracket. So as you can see, nice little bracket there. You can put on a 120 or a 140mm fan on there. And that is going to be going at the rear of where your PCI Express cards are. So if you've got your graphics card in there, obviously it's going to be venting some heat out the back anyway. If you want to assist with that heat extraction and you don't think that a single CTE fan is going to be enough, you can always stick another in this bracket, put it back on. If you want ease of access and maybe you've got some capture cards or something like that, or extra USB cards in here, you could always just leave this out. You don't need to put it in there. It isn't structural in any way, so potentially I will probably leave it out just because I have capture cards. But you've got a ton of depth here as well. So in terms of actual depth, I'm going to measure that and see how deep it actually is. So from the slots to the first piece of metal here, looking about 3 inches, and to the top section where the actual filter is, you're looking at about just over 4 inches. So if you measure up your cables, say something like HDMI cable, DisplayPort cable, most of the time they're going to be somewhere in the region of about 2 inches. So you've still got a little bit of room there for flexing your cables round. And if I lift this up very slightly, you can see the cables will channel into the back here and then out through the back, as we said a little bit earlier. So overall, I must admit, I'm not 100% convinced about the 90-degree rotation, the CTE platform. Personally, I think I prefer the traditional layout, but if they could do a traditional layout in this case, I think it would be absolutely amazing. But anyway, that I think is pretty much it. Let's get this thing put back together. Now I thought we'd do a quick section now on the accessories, as we haven't gone over that yet. So obviously you get your installation manual. Guide tells you what everything is, which you may need because there is a lot of stuff in here. And obviously being it's a rotated design, it's a little bit trying to get your head around, but you should be absolutely fine with it. So next one is this bigger box. So in the bigger box, this is your PCI Express rotation bracket. So this is only suitable for up to 3 slot cards. So if you're looking at a 4090, possibly you might want to look elsewhere, but you may still be able to make it work. Realistically, it's made for 3 slot cards. So that basically attaches in the top to hang the graphics card from. And also, depending if you're using a 90-degree or 180-degree riser cable from your motherboard, both of those are included. Well, the brackets for them are. The cable isn't, sadly. So you do have a bracket there, which basically attaches to the side of here, just so you can attach your cables, etc., etc. Whether or not many people will do that, I don't particularly know. It's quite a complicated setup as it is. but certainly they've given you the option to do it, which again, considering the price point of this at around about £130 at launch, I think it's actually still staggering value for money for what you actually get there. Also in the other accessories box, so this is more of the kind of mundane or routine things that you're used to seeing. So there's a whole bunch of Thermaltake zip ties there for wrapping your cables in. There's about 10 of those in there. Get all of the screws that you'll ever need for installing fans, your motherboard, all that kind of stuff. And also there's a BIOS bleeper in there as well, so you can plug that into your motherboard. So if for some reason your PC is not booting and you don't have a motherboard with codes on it or some kind of diagnostic LEDs, then you can plug in that to hear the beeps. A little bit old-fashioned, but it does the job. And there's a bunch of cable ties in there as well. Next up, there are some pads. So this is for using with your GPU bracket or clamp, so you can protect your GPU from the metal with those self-adhesive pads. That's pretty handy. There's also an adjustment bracket there, which is just on a twist screw, so for supporting your GPU. And last but not least are two right angle GPU supports. So not only have you got the option for actually putting your graphics card in on an upward angle or 90-degree angle, or however you want to put it, basically rotated, you've also got brackets as well to hold it all nicely in place. So if you are considering actually building in this and then shipping it somewhere, it will still hold your graphics card stable in the middle without too much fuss, which is pretty good. And speaking of fuss, now is time for me to actually build in this thing in 26-degree heat with no air conditioning. So I'm going to get on and do that, and we'll come back when the build is finished. Okay, so the build is done, and I'll be honest with you, it is challenging. If you've been building for PCs for many years, when it comes to having a motherboard where it's all rotated, it really does mess up your muscle memory. But I think actually it looks very unique. It's a very different look, and it actually seems to work very well. Now, I was a little bit hesitant about the whole CTE technology, the centralized thermal efficiency, but actually it does seem to do a fantastic job. So we've got some really nice, cool, fresh air blowing straight into our graphics card, which is the RX 6800. And at the front here, even though it doesn't look that big, that is actually a 420mm Thermaltake TH420 version 2 ARGB radiator. And it fitted in really easily. It's always a tricky thing when you do big radiators, but actually worked really well. Taking that front panel out, attaching the fans and the radiator to it, sandwiching it together, then just putting the whole thing in, absolute piece of cake. And when it came to cable management and wiring, absolute dream to work with, as long as you get your muscle memory around where all the ports are going to be. And quite often I did find myself having to kind of look on one side, then go to the other, and vice versa, just to work out where the cables are actually coming through. So it will take you a little bit of extra time when you're doing a build in one of these, but I think it's actually worth it. And I've actually left the top section slightly open there, so you can see kind of how it all works internally. So as you can see, the graphics card, the port is coming out of the top there, and there's an absolute ton of room in there. So if you've got any concerns about cables bending over or anything like that, don't worry about that. The only thing I would say is if you are somebody who regularly changes things and you need regular access to your ports, the CTE series probably isn't for you. Actually having the ports kind of encapsulated in this top section can be a little bit of a fiddly nightmare, and also you will need to remove the back plate as well, or the back cover, to actually route the cables through yourself. Would have been nice to have seen some sort of isolation channel in there, so if you pass cables through, they automatically come out towards that rear rubber flap. But overall, it's not something which you can't get around, it's just it can be a little bit fiddly. And if your PC is in a location where access to the rear isn't as easy, then you may find yourself having to move the whole case out. So that is the more negative side of it. On the positive side, absolutely tons of room. Now this is a triple fan card, and it actually looks relatively small in there. Plenty of room all around it on both sides. So cooling the back plate and cooling the front section, getting some fresh air straight into those three big fans works really well. And the whole thing runs very quietly, and also very low temperatures as well. This at the moment is the lowest temperatures I've seen on our Ryzen 7 7700X. It really does keep it cool. It's considerably under 40 degrees Celsius, which considering at the moment in this room it's about 28 degrees. It's super warm, and it's doing a fantastic job. Even though it's technically blowing hot air into the case because of how warm it is in this room, it is managing to deal with it very easily. Now obviously at the moment you can see the front panels off, the side panels, etc, it's open, but I have done some Cinebench testing with it all enclosed, and it works very well. And the amount of positive pressure which is being blasted out the top of the case is phenomenal. It really is. The CT140 fans, I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again, they do move an incredible amount of air. So definitely well done to Thermaltake for implementing those as their kind of stock case fans. Now some of you are probably thinking, well Mike, it's a little bit tame considering how much room you've got here. I've done that specifically for one reason, well, two reasons. One reason being people really are starting to get a little bit bored of RGB in some instances, so I didn't want to go completely to town with tons of RGB. And we've still got our CT140s at the back there, which are non-RGB, which I think actually is fine. There's a little splash of RGB in there, so it's not over the top and it does a good job. I could have populated all of these bottom sections with 120mm SWA fans, put some more in the top and sides, etc. But I thought, no, I will try and do it as close to possible as what people are going to buy the case. So if you purchase the case, obviously you're going to get the fans. I'm assuming you're going to have your own water cooler or AIO, that sort of thing. And this is something which is very easily achievable and isn't going to cost an absolute fortune. Like I said, £129.99 is the introductory price at the moment from scan.co.uk. So I think in terms of value for money, again, the CTE range is phenomenal. The value is insane. The amount of flexibility, the sheer amount of workmanship and extra panels, the GPU brackets, the rotated design brackets as well. So if you want to put your graphics card in and have it fully on show, then you can do, and it isn't going to cost you any extra other than having to purchase a PCI Express Gen 4 riser card. But other than that, you've got pretty much everything you need. And having those 3 CT140 fans included straight out of the box, I think is going to be very helpful to a lot of people. So overall, I think excellent value for money, slightly tricky to build in and possibly not everybody's cup of tea due to that motherboard rotation. But if you like the look of it and you like the price, then I think it's definitely one to put on your shopping list. Now I should also say as well, in terms of dimensions, I haven't mentioned this earlier, I should have done really. When it comes to graphics cards, 375mm is about the biggest you'll get if you're using fans or a radiator on the bottom. If you're leaving it wide open, around about 410, 415mm. If you don't want to use water cooling, and maybe you want to use a big aftermarket cooler, such as a Noctua D15 or something along those lines, you can have a air cooler of up to 190mm. So plenty of room for air cooling if you wanted to go down that route. Although I do feel that this case really does kind of cry out for water cooling and potentially extra radiators. I was umming and ahhing whether or not to put the 420mm radiator in the back just to kind of show how much room there is, but I figured I'll put it on the front. I think it looks a little bit nicer in that respect. And also we've managed to get it pipes down, which is very unusual these days. In a lot of cases, it's a hard thing to do. But this does it very easily. Anyway, I've rambled this on for way too long. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video, and if you need any more information about any of the CTE range of cases, or this one in particular, you can either join us in the chat below in the comments, or you can come over to our Discord and post any questions you've got there. I'm more than happy to try and answer them for you. Or if you want more in-depth spec and potentially pricing, check out the links in the video description for both Thermaltake and also local stockists in the UK and also around the world that will have this in stock, and hopefully you can find yourself a decent bargain. So I think that's going to pretty much wrap things up. I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.